So we pulled into our location right at twilight. We only had a few minutes left of daylight, so we immediately set up camp and got a fire going. And the rest of the night we just sat around the fire and just caught up, told some stories, and first thing in the morning, the investigation and the filming began.
My name's Nathaniel Bronis. I've been involved in field research since right around 2009, where I came into this summer of '09. I had a sighting in the state of Michigan, where I'm from, and essentially I was out scouting for deer on the backside of my property, preparing to learn. I was trying to learn how to deer hunt, essentially. And during that process of scouting and finding bedding areas where the deer were congregating in the summer, trying to locate like doe bedding areas and where their fawns are hanging out, and where the bachelor groups of bucks are grouping up in the summer. In July, in mid-afternoon, I was out hiking along a transition from our property onto our neighbor's property, who we had permission to hunt around their property. And I was out crossing fence lines right over to their property, and going to hook up to an ATV trail that would then contour all this bedding area that the does had been previously hanging out by, near these old rock piles where farmers stacked up all the rocks they'd plow out of the ground. And during that process, I saw a figure coming through like this young aspen, or we would call it poplar over by where we're at, and just a figure looming in there. And I thought it was my neighbor, maybe in a blackout outfit, doing like in a turkey blind that's like blacked out inside. So, because that's what you tell yourself, you see something and you assume it's a person. So we start converging on the same point. I'm quietly walking. It's just weaving in and out of the trees and coming out, and eventually it clears the sun. And right at about that point, probably 120 feet away, I got to see what was obviously not my neighbor. It was about 120 feet away. I could see what was obviously a very muscular, dark-haired individual, a Sasquatch. Very, very plainly, not anything else. You could see skin detail on the face and the tops of the fingers. You could see thin hair on the neck, and you could see oil shining as it would turn its head. You could see oil where it was all dirty and oily, reflecting light back on its cheeks, its forehead, all that stuff. You could see calloused kneecaps where there were no hair. It was just chalky white, really dry looking, no hair there, completely missing hair. And you could see all the muscle contour lines, like the tricep. You could see the edge of the bicep, the main load head of the forearm. You could see the top of the shoulder and the delts crowning over each other, casting shadows over each other. The hair had directional flow to it, like you'd see on a German Shepherd, contouring muscle groups. It was pretty amazing to see all this detail. And time just stopped. Like what you perceive to be, a few seconds just feels like ages. Like you're unable to move and you're locked in this pause in time. And essentially, we just both are staring. It comes out and looks down at the 2-track, and that's when we locked eyes. It did a double take, looked toward me, and I was staring at it, and we're just staring at each other down. And eventually, what feels like an hour was actually probably 8 to 10 seconds. I have no way of calculating actually how much time it was. It had to have been shorter than what I perceive in my mind, in the memory. And it eventually gets upset and pulls its head away from looking at me and scrunches up its whole face and exhales. And that's when you could see the muscles flex, because it tensed up when it flexed. It just went like that, and it exhaled. You could tell it let air out. I couldn't really hear it, but I could tell it let air out. And then it dropped what apparently was carrying was a dead fawn, just dropped it on the ground, like rolled it. It was carrying it over its forearm, and it just rolled it off onto the ground, and it looked back up, and then it did this large U-turn back into the brush. And as it hit the brush, it could have gone back the way it came out, and it would have been easier for it, but it chose to go through this brush, and as it went through, it would just grab handfuls of this willow brush, which grows about yay tall, and it would just grab it and rip it up and throw it, and then smash some of it, fold some over. It was showing me its strength. And that's when the fear, you run cold. You're just shaking, you're locked up. Your heart is pounding so hard that you can hear your heart just pounding in your ears, and your eyes are visibly shaking because your heart is beating so hard. And that whole experience, even after it diverted into the woods and was gone, I couldn't even move for at least 2 or 3 minutes because I was scared. I was like, if I run, is it going to come back and chase me? Or if I stay here also, is it going to take that as a continued challenge and potentially come and get me? But so you're in a panic and you're frozen. You don't know what to do. It was something else. So I guess that's as short as I can make that event. And ever since then, I went through about a year of completely being mortified about being outside in natural spaces, or couldn't even feed the animals at night. Walking past a sliding glass door at night was too much. Like all the lights had to be on, and you couldn't bring yourself to do anything outside after dark. But after about a year, I started watching documentaries about chimps and gorillas, and I started to hear very similar things to what I witnessed about behavior and actions and of these animals, and it just made it more real and less spooky and monstrous. It made it more of a reality of something living out there just doing its thing, and we were unlucky enough to cross paths. And with all of that, I ended up eventually just being completely captured with interest about trying to figure out what these things are, what they do, how they do what they do, and live in this wild natural environment and remain completely hidden. And that just led me down a road toward field research. And then I moved out here to the Pacific and slightly inland Northwest area, and starting to do a lot of data projects and collecting information. And that's how I got into it.
Why you said it left the deer?
Yeah, it just rolled it off of its forearm.
Why do you think it did that? So it could get away faster, or?
I don't know. It might have been like a situation where it's like a consolation prize. Like I'm fine. You can have it. I've had what I wanted. Or maybe it was a way to distract me if I decided to continue to approach. I have no idea. All I can tell you is that maybe, and there was still meat left on. We went back. When we went back, I brought my parents, and I had a rifle with me and all that. My cousin, who told me I was lying the whole time, he actually found footprints in the brush where it ripped up all the willow. Mm-hmm. And so he had to completely revise calling me a liar. He's like, I don't know, something did go through here, but I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot, but something went through here. And he's like looking at all the torn up willow laying around that was thrown like 20, 30 feet. And but the deer was completely stripped of meat. Its organs were gone. The only meat left was on the front shoulders and legs and neck. That was it. The top of the skull was punched in just straight in over the cranium. Like you could push the hide, you could push on the hide, and it would be hollow down into the brain case. So, and there was a big laceration that ran from like the right side eyebrow to the back of the ear, a huge laceration. So it's almost like those giant rock piles I had mentioned earlier. This thing had just been walking through the grass, found this fawn curled up in the grass, and saw the rock piles, saw the fawn, and decided to get one and just give it a whap. It's a dead deer, dead fawn. Easy food. And it just left what was left on the body there on the 2-track and left. I don't know if it was trying to just lighten its load, or if it just like, fine, you take this, I'm out of here. Don't know.
Cool. We are headed up this ridge where there is a long-term recorder, audio recorder, and I need to replace the batteries and the SD card. And it's got about 40 days worth of recording, so I have to do this a little less than once a month. And we've gotten a lot of knocks on it, and recently a really good sounding whoop. Just to test how well it's hidden.
Is it a box or?
It's a camo box, and you can see it from where I'm standing.
It's right there.
No.
I'm just gonna point vaguely. From where you're standing.
Yeah, and where you're standing, you can see it.
Okay.
Unless it's hidden behind a limb or something, but it's easily in view. And you're looking for it. There's also some wires. So this is just kind of for fun. Because if you guys know it's here and you're looking for it and you can't find it, then the odds of somebody just happening across it are pretty low. Nothing's sticking out. Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's within a 10-foot radius of that pine tree, that medium-sized pine tree sticking out of that rock.
Which one?
Yeah,
Over there?
sticking right out of that little.
Well, I think you'd want it up there. To catch the sound sooner. There it is, right there. I see it.
Yeah, there. Okay.
Within a 10-foot radius of the tree. It's on the freaking tree.
I don't think I would have found it if you hadn't.
Yeah, and then there's the wires. And I guess first check the microphones are still.
Looks to be still attached.
Yeah, there's one. No, I got it more that way now, but I mean, as long as we keep the general area vague, yeah. And that's the big reason not to let it be known, is because if they know there's an audio recorder here, it's a perfect place to come. Oh, yeah, we'll make some loops or whatever. Oops.
So you're just servicing it. You're replacing the memory and the battery.
Yeah, and maybe I'll let Nathan explain how it works, but I will get it out here and show you. So it's in this box that was painted. And inside there's this recorder. That's it, just a standard recorder.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the battery pack that lasts about 40 days. So I'll switch that out first.
Mic kind of thing going.
Yes, these are omnidirectional microphones, really high sensitivity. They're designed for wildlife recording. And yeah, I have them custom made by a guy I know. And I actually built that rig right there. But, yep, they're just good for monitoring an area, for vocalizations, wood knocks, any kind of behavior you're trying to capture. Yeah, they can run up to 48 nights. I typically run 128 kilobits per second. You can run 320, but you only half the distance on the card, like how long you can go. We typically run it between 10 and 11 hours a night. And yeah, and it's just to capture basically what acoustic behaviors are going on out here, as far as all kinds of wildlife, owls, wolves, coyotes, anything. And then if you're lucky enough, maybe Sasquatch vocalizations as well. And this little high point right here is a great place to get acoustic pickup for your omnidirectional mics. Work a little differently than your cardioid or narrow directional microphones. These pick up within 180 degrees of their element facing forward, and it's just really good for getting an ambient static amount of sound, so you can play something three-dimensionally in the way you hear it. Because if you look at a narrow, like the microphones on some of your standard shooting cameras, they're meant to focus sound within a parameter of an area. They're not meant to pick up sound behind you or around you. It's meant to be capturing whatever your subject is. So the microphones are a little different for acoustic wildlife recording than you would use, say, on a YouTube camera or something like that.
Double checking that the date is right, the time is right, because it's on a timer. That's why it lasts 40 days. It would last maybe 20 days if it were going 24 hours.
Yes, the system is designed to operate that it has a timer record function, so it's powered continuously, but the timer keeps track of whatever time or date you set it for, and then it clicks over, say if I set it to 8 o'clock, 8 p.m., and then I tell it to shut down recording at, say, 7 a.m., then I'm getting an 11-hour night, or a 13-hour night or whatever, and I'm able to capture in that time frame. That way it's not just consuming space, capturing dirt bikes, riding up and down the roads all day long. You might miss stuff, true, but at night, that's going to be the primary time to capture behavior in the absence of humans anyway, so that's why we focus on that.
It's a cool setup, man.
Yeah.
I think so why keep the location secret? I do feel kind of bad about that because I learned about some good locations from other people's videos, but I had the recorder out and I guess some of Will's videos, and I got all these great howls and whoops and tree knocks, and then I realized it was a bunch of people going out there bigfooting, and so now, so anything that I got from there, I had to kind of discount or at least put a big question mark over it because you never know, because it's such a popular spot. So that's why I like to keep this not exactly known where it is, so that it doesn't pollute the data.
Good stuff.
So there's a very narrow flat area between this ridge and that ridge. It expands going down towards the creek, and it's filled with springs and muddy areas, so we can now go check that for tracks, because it seems like it would be a good passageway for something going from that drainage to the drainage right over there.
Coming out. That's probably the best place.
Yeah, something like that should be
Yep.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll head over, and then we can, I know there's springs here, but they're all over.
See this flat here? That's
Yeah.
your flat right there. All that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. That'll work.
Okay. These woods are a bitch. So we're working our way down the hillside through some thick forest. Not yet. Trying to get down to, like, I guess a creek bed area. So we're almost there. Almost. What, you're drinking a Coke?
Heck yeah.
Oh man, I'm jealous.
Oh, look, it's just Will. I must have ran off and left him too.
Just a nice easy walk through the woods, huh?
Well, I wasn't properly briefed for this evolution.
Me neither.
I was told we were going back to the campsite, at which time I would have donned proper attire and brought my bag with water.
Well, I got extra water, dude.
Don't worry about it, Marshall.
No,
I'm too fucking angry. Don't even. Nothing. You can't do anything for me right now. You just can't.
All right, if I gave you water, you'd just throw it in the forest.
Probably.
So Aaron and Nathan are hiking straight back to base camp, and we're hiking uphill back to the vehicles to take them back to base camp. So we're split up now.
My phone is 4K.